Welcome back to the deep dive. You know that feeling? The one where your professional life, it feels less like a solid career path and more like you're, I don't know, riding a mechanical bull,
Ah, that's a good way to put it.
where you're just constantly bracing for the next big jolt, right?
Yeah.
Waiting for that email that tells you the entire plan has changed. Again,
Hmm.
if that sounds anything like your last year at work, then you are definitely in the right place.
We've taken a deep breath and plunged into a really unique stack of source material today. It's all focused on this crushing, pervasive weight of corporate anxiety,
Right.
and more importantly, how that uncertainty at the leadership level just trickles right down from the executive suite to, well, to your desk.
Our mission today is to give a specific name and really a structural cause to that instability. We are diving deep to dismantle a concept our sources call the panic of prediction.
A powerful phrase.
It really is. It's like constant bracing, that feeling that the ground is always shifting under your feet at work. We're not just identifying the anxiety, we're trying to pinpoint its institutional origin.
And we're starting right at the top.
Mm.
We're questioning a really fundamental, almost unconscious assumption that we all make about C-suite leaders.
Which is?
The core concept we're digging into is, well, it's simple, but it's also profound. We assume they can see the future, but the reality is they're just guessing.
Okay, let's unpack this because that idea feels radical. We all operate under this ingrained expectation that leaders have some kind of metaphorical crystal ball.
Right. We're good.
We assume they have access to better data, deeper market trends, proprietary analysis, all these forward projections. We think they know what's coming with near perfect clarity.
Exactly. And that expectation is precisely why their abrupt course corrections can feel like such a betrayal.
It feels like a betrayal of that unspoken promise of stability.
Yes. The expectation is that they're these omniscient seers, but our source material just hits us with the surprising reality of it all. We're in a perpetually volatile market now.
It certainly feels that way.
We've got rapid tech shifts, geopolitical instability, supply chain whiplash. I mean, even the most sophisticated modeling systems just can't keep pace.
So the truth is,
The truth is, these leaders are not operating with perfect clarity. They are, and I love this phrase from the sources, panic scrolling just like you.
wow, panic scrolling just like us. I mean, that one phrase completely demolishes the myth of the perfectly poised executive, doesn't it?
It really does.
It instantly reveals that fundamental disconnect. We, the employees, are expecting clairvoyance, stability, a 5-year roadmap.
And what are we actually getting?
We're getting real-time, high-stakes guesswork from the top. And that uncertainty, especially when it's disguised as strategy, that's the real source of our collective anxiety.
That's the key structural problem that the source identifies. If a CEO is spending 90% of their time just trying to predict the next wave of disruption, they're in a state of reaction, not planning.
But wait, isn't signaling confidence, isn't that necessary to maintain market stability and, investor trust?
Of course.
How does the source reconcile that need for stability with the reality that they're just making their best guess?
Well, that's the tension, right? They have to
Uh,
project assurance, but internally, they're running on a fear of being wrong. And this disconnect is precisely what the sources term the panic of prediction.
So that's the formal definition.
It's the emotional and organizational mechanism that kicks in when market volatility spikes. Leadership feels immense pressure, so they react, often prematurely, by basically throwing darts in the dark.
That analogy of throwing darts is so vivid. What's fascinating here, though, is the distinction the source makes about how that guessing game looks depending on where you are in the organization.
Oh, this is crucial.
Because guessing at the top doesn't look like uncertainty to the rest of us. It looks like decisive action.
Precisely. When the CEO or the C-suite takes a wild shot, a bold move in response to some threatening market indicator, they don't call it a guess.
Of course not. What do they call it?
They call it a strategic pivot.
Ah, yes. The strategic pivot. I think I've heard that one before.
That is the language used to mask the underlying panic. It's how you package fear as foresight. Think of it as rebranding frantic course correction as like high-level brilliance.
So let's break that down. When a strategic pivot comes from a place of panic, not genuine long-term vision, how does that actually manifest in the day-to-day for, say, a determined manager who's listening right now?
It creates whiplash. The source material is very clear about this. When that strategic pivot, that strategic guess starts trickling down, it translates into a set of very specific and very painful actions.
Actions that directly contradict the plan we were all working on last week.
Exactly. We've all seen it. You're talking about sudden, unannounced hiring freezes right after a major push to expand.
Oh, absolutely. Or departmental budgets getting slashed mid-quarter, even though they were approved just weeks earlier.
And worst of all, those vague corporate speak emails
The ones about restructuring for synergy optimization?
or a new company-wide push for efficiency or my personal favorite, right-sizing.
Right. So if we connect this to the bigger picture, this is where the economic anxiety doesn't just stay in the C-suite.
It rolls downhill. It starts as their panic over prediction, and it translates directly into employee insecurity, instability, and, frankly, fear about your job or your project's future.
That constant downward pressure of rolling anxiety, that is the core mechanism we're trying to understand and maybe eventually resist.
It
It
is.
makes so much sense. We're absorbing the stress of our leadership's confusion, which leads directly to the personal cost of it all, framing the audience as potentially part of the anxious generation.
And that label is spot on.
It really speaks volumes about the current state of professional life, doesn't it? We're seeing a generation whose career stability is constantly being undermined by external corporate panic.
It's spot on because the analysis moves beyond just the financial cost. It gets into the emotional toll.
Yeah.
The source states emphatically that you, the listener, are carrying the emotional weight of someone else's uncertainty.
Wow, say that again.
You're carrying the emotional weight of someone else's uncertainty. You're forced to react to the stress of a leader's confusion, trying to realign your whole team and your goals every 3 months without the power to make the decision yourself.
The cognitive load of that alone is huge. It's like, imagine you're driving, and every 10 minutes your GPS suddenly reroutes you to a completely new, often contradictory destination. You'd exhaust yourself not by the act of driving, but by the constant necessary recalibration. That whiplash is the real drain.
And it connects this emotional weight directly to professional burnout. It's not just the sheer volume of work. The true exhaustion comes from trying to follow leaders who are described in the source material as being effectively lost.
When leadership is lost, execution at the bottom becomes, well, impossible.
You can't execute confidently or efficiently if the goalposts are shifting every quarter. Your effort feels wasted because it was focused on a goal that was just canceled by the latest strategic pivot.
So this raises a really important question. If we accept that this organizational whiplash is the primary driver of modern burnout, then what's the defensive strategy? How do you actually shield yourself from this?
Well, the source material offers a powerful, almost philosophical solution that is actually deeply practical. It states a fundamental truth that has to be internalized.
Okay.
You cannot build a kingdom career on the world's panic.
You cannot build a kingdom career on the world's panic. That immediately shifts the locus of control away from the C-suite, the market, those vague emails.
And it places it squarely back onto the individual's foundation.
I appreciate that shift. It implies that true stability isn't something you find externally. If the panic is external and pervasive, which we've established it is, then your foundation has to be internal.
Internal and inherently steady. You need a base that holds firm even when the C-suite is shaking. Which, let's be honest, is going to be the new normal for a while.
So what's the instruction?
The explicit instruction given to the listener is maybe the most actionable advice we've discussed. It's stop letting their panic become your prediction.
Stop letting their panic become your prediction.
It means recognizing that, yes, market volatility is a reality, but your career trajectory doesn't have to mirror the company's reactive guesswork. You have to decouple your professional path from their immediate reactive guessing.
But how do you actually build that new structure? The source uses some specific terminology here that I think really needs to be broken down. We can't just throw out a phrase like high-value kingdom ecosystem without defining what that means.
You're right. The terminology is critical because it defines the goal.
And the goal is?
The goal, as defined by the source material, is to build a high-value kingdom ecosystem that operates independently. When we translate this into practical terms, it means creating a career structure where your security is intrinsic.
Intrinsic, so it resides in you, not your employer.
It resides in your unique skills, your network, and your ability to generate value, not in the stability of your current employer's balance sheet.
So if the C-suite is shaking, your ecosystem needs to hold steady. What are the practical components? Is this about side hustles, or is it something deeper?
It's deeper. Much deeper. The sources emphasize creating what they call non-dependency. Your ecosystem is built on portability and intrinsic value.
And practically, that means?
Practically, it means cultivating niche, high-demand skills that are transferable across industries. It means having market intelligence about your own worth that exceeds what HR tells you. It could mean diversifying your income streams, sure, but it also means focusing only on projects that enhance your professional profile, your personal equity, even if your company just calls it a side task.
Right.
It's about ensuring your professional viability does not depend on a CEO's best guess.
That emphasis on intrinsic value and non-dependency is the exact antithesis of the fear generated by the panic of prediction.
It is.
The realization that this uncertainty is pervasive, even at the highest levels, is really the first and most critical step in regaining control. You recognize the problem, you name it, and then you can start building.
Absolutely. This understanding moves you from being a passive recipient of anxiety, just bracing for the next vague email, to becoming an active architect of your own career stability. Naming the problem is the first step to resisting its draining effect.
Now, what we've discussed today, this is actually part of a much broader framework that the source material lays out, right?
Yeah.
Covering faith, finance, and career.
That's right. This discussion is just one piece of a much larger puzzle, one designed to give you the blueprints. For those listeners who are ready to move from simply listening to actually building that ecosystem.
To taking action.
Yes, to taking action. The sources detail a range of advanced resources. They reference things like 8-week accelerator modules and targeted live session strategy training, all designed to flesh these subjects out in a more hands-on format.
So it's a path from theory into implementation.
Exactly. For the determined manager, there are clear next steps.
This really reinforces the idea that resources do exist for people who want to move from passively receiving anxiety to actively building their own stable future. It's a comprehensive approach.
What's fascinating is the sheer breadth of it all, from advanced workshops to deeper dives.
Yeah.
It really is a comprehensive path from insight to implementation.
So we'll end with a provocative thought, one that's suggested directly by the source material. They're very interested in ongoing engagement. The author encourages participation, suggesting that leaving a comment or a review may actually provoke another episode for them to expand upon.
That's a direct call to action.
It is. It implies that your curiosity, your specific pain points, can directly influence the next deep dive they take into this landscape.
It's a wonderful feedback loop. It makes you, the listener, not just an audience member, but a co-curator of the knowledge.
So here's our final challenge for you. The next time you get one of those vague corporate emails about efficiency or a sudden strategic pivot, what label will you give it now?
Now that you know about the panic of prediction.
Exactly. Identifying the source of your professional anxiety is the critical first step toward building your own steady foundation and eventually your own high-value kingdom ecosystem.
We encourage you to seek out those resources and start building that non-dependency structure today.
Thanks for diving deep with us. We'll see you next time.